It is no accident that a second prequel pilot was announced this week. If you've been following, just at the end of August, I was quickly finishing up my series on the filming of Long Night. And tell me in the comments, tell everyone else in the comments if you remember this. At the end of that series, I said, I'm wrapping this up right now because Martin has said the rough cut edit of the Long Night prequel pilot will be finished by early September and be screened to HBO and to me. But, and this is crucial, at the time, he said it would then be followed by months of deliberation on whether they would greenlight a full season or not, or pick another prequel pitch, or see how things go. Now, as we know from Martin, literally the same week, we were expecting all the decision makers at HBO to see the Long Night prequel pilot for the first time. What they're doing a matter of days later, not months as he predicted, days later, there is instantly news that they want to order a second pilot on something else. I'm not the only one saying it. This does not bode well for their faith in the Long Night prequel. Please discuss this point in the comments of the week we knew they would have the rough cut Long Night pilot finish, they instantly ordered a different pilot, or in motion to order another pilot imminently. It wasn't debating it for weeks, and maybe we should or shouldn't. I heard rumors that it is awful, just in general concept is bizarre. And I wish I could tell you more if I had more evidence, which I don't, but it really seems to match what I was told, that it is insane. And moreover, the old executives that picked Long Night, like Richard Plepler, they're not in charge at HBO anymore. AT&T put Bob Greenblatt in charge. These new guys have no attachment to the Long Night prequel. They're not trying to hype it up out of pride. It's the old executive's fault. And Bob Greenblatt has actually been openly saying in interviews, candidly, if the Long Night prequel pilot isn't good, we're not going to do it. Compared to Casey Bloys, the holdover head of drama department, who's been still hyping it even as late as last month as the only prequel. And such a great idea. I've seen test footage. It's so great. Wait until you see what they really did. So, thankfully, there was a change in leadership. Same people are running HBO now under AT&T, and they have no reason to... The people who made seasons 5 through 8 of Game of Thrones, who picked and supported that, like Richard Plepler, picked Long Night. The men who approved that Confederate show, Plepler and Bloys, approved Long Night. But entirely different people are now watching it, and just the same week, days later, order another pilot. AT&T bought HBO last year, and the old HBO leadership, Richard Plepler and so forth, they're the ones that picked the Long Night prequel, but they don't work for HBO anymore. Nonetheless, in the past year, wanting to appear successful to the old bosses, when they announced all the prequels last year, Plepler and his cronies, they've been hawking Long Night as the only prequel for the past full year. After they picked it, it was so weird that they keep going, it's the prequel, and then Martin would come out with post on his blog saying, well, no, there's a couple of other prequels that I'm still actively discussing with HBO, which they are interested in, or at least actively encouraging work on. And he wasn't just blindly going, oh, there's other ones. He'd say, well, one of the other ideas got canceled, but they still like the other one, not going to say what they are. So all sorts of just casual news sites, the kind that bought into the hype for Season 8 of Game of Thrones based on nothing, they just ate up all this hype HBO was putting out. And these are the same people that said Season 8 would be amazing, and you believed them. These same news sites also bought into the blind hype for the Long Night prequel, when that actually isn't a very good idea at all, in general principle. Martin never wrote any significant material for that era, and more importantly, never intended to set a prequel narrative, much less a TV show then. And it really just seemed like HBO wanted to tell a rehash of the White Walker storyline based on hype, to buy into the White Walker hype, which was really high between season 7 and 8. But it has all sorts of inherent problems in it, which I go over in other videos. And I point out, and you'll be saying this a lot, as Stannis said, our enemies made the realm bleed. And we're not going to forget that. The internet is written in ink, not pencil. And we're going to remember which news sites blindly hyped Season 8 much more than was reasonable, but really going overboard. And more importantly, news sites that blindly hyped the Long Night prequel without knowing anything about it beyond a shallow level. Even as major book sites like Westeros.org was saying this is a terrible idea for a prequel, we don't support it, there were a few major sites that were complaining this doesn't seem like the best idea for a prequel. Who do you think the other prequel, not just Dance of the Dragons, but for the next 10 years, if the Long Night prequel really is the bomb that we've been rumored that it is, all of these major news sites that seem to be running things now in mainstream stuff, you're the ones who doubled down on the Long Night and pretended there were no other prequels, even as Martin was saying there were. Do you think they're going to forget that you abandoned them? Do you think we're going to forget this abandonment? That you blindly trusted HBO and led us into Season 8, led us into Long Night? This will have consequences. And the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction now. That I honestly think a lot of people who were still riding high during the later TV seasons of, yeah, Season 7 is great, Season 6 is great, even though they liked that there were no books to compare it to, because they always just felt stupid with someone telling them the books did this a different way, which was better, this is increasingly incoherent. Like the hype by the end of Season 7 of this is great, and I think a lot of people actually saw the lack of book material as a positive for this. I mean, even Westeros.org said this in their video review of the pitch idea. They went, I think HBO just wanted a blank slate, and a lot of people are really pushing for this because they hate the books. They hate the very idea of something being a book adaptation that you have to deal with. It's getting something wrong. Even though, even a purely TV show, how many other pure TV shows not based on books have ultimately failed? It isn't just a failure of adaptation. Just as a TV show, Season 8 didn't really work. Even for TV, why would TV-only fans be complaining about it at this point? It's not a books versus TV series thing. But it felt like by picking Long Night, you were trying to avoid George R.R. Martin. And so many major news sites were hyping that up as a positive. Well, it turns out that without Martin's writings as a basis, you got a really stupid Season 8. Without his writings as a basis, you got a really bad prequel pitch in Long Night. I've heard disturbing rumors about the Long Night prequel that I posted them, then I took them down because people said you really shouldn't be saying this with only verbal evidence. There wasn't solid evidence for it, but reliable sources have told me rumors about the Long Night prequel that led me to think it would be a disaster. And beyond that, it's got inherent problems in general principle. On top of that, they were doing things that were insane. And big point here, next section. What are the prequel ideas in contention now?